The Dallas Cowboys have not played in an NFC Championship game in the last 25 years, and that's saying a lot because when you look at this division, all the teams have had more postseason success than the Dallas Cowboys within this time frame. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they just won a Super Bowl over the Kansas City Chiefs. A few years back, they went against the Kansas City Chiefs with Jalen Hurts. They lost that Super Bowl. But we go back just a little bit further when they had Carson Wentz. He was an MVP candidate all season long. He went down to ACL injury. Nick Foles comes in. They won a Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. So the Philadelphia Eagles, they're going out there. They're having major postseason success in this division. They have rebuilt their team in the best way possible. Good leadership, good coaching, great talent. You look at the Washington Commanders / Washington Redskins. They were the Redskins 20 years back. They've had success. They just went to the NFC Championship game with your former defensive coordinator and Dan Quinn, and they drafted Jaden Daniels, a rookie. They did that with their rookie quarterback, and it seems like they're making all the right moves this offseason to bring in the right talent and to build that system around him. And when you look at the New York Giants, they have been terrible as of late. They have not been a good organization. But they have won 2 Super Bowls within the last 25 years with Eli Manning being their starting quarterback, and they did that against the New England Patriots. So what the hell is going on with this organization? Jerry Jones is the biggest problem. Now, he can bring in elite level talent by drafting. I'm not going to question that. When you go out there, you have DeMarco Murray, Dez Bryant, you have Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, La'el Collins, Ron O'Leary, Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. You're bringing in talented players, but it's not translating over to the NFL postseason because you're mismanaging the players and their contracts and you're not bringing in the right coaches. Look at what the Philadelphia Eagles have done. They have gotten very aggressive in the NFL draft. They got very aggressive in free agency. The same with the Washington Commanders in free agency and also by making a lot of trades. And the same with the New York Giants in the past when they first brought in Dave Gettleman. They got aggressive. They brought in some big time talent. You look at the Dallas Cowboys, they have been very cheap in free agency. And the reason for that is because Jerry Jones is overpaying some of his players. And one of the worst decisions that he has made within the last few years is paying Dak Prescott $60 million a year. Now, I do want to explain this. I'm not saying that Dak Prescott is a bad quarterback. I'm a Dak Prescott guy. I think that he's a very good quarterback. But I don't believe that he's going to be the main reason to why you win a Super Bowl. Dak Prescott is better off as an elite game manager. That's his role. There are times where he looks like a top 10 quarterback. We just saw him 2 seasons ago in his year with Mike McCarthy when they went to the playoffs against the Green Bay Packers and he lost in the first round. 4,516 passing yards, 36 passing touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He should have been an MVP candidate that season. He will have those big time moments, but a lot of those numbers are coming from when he's playing from behind or when he's going against weaker competition, when he's going against teams below 500. When you place him into a high pressure situation in the NFL playoffs, more times than not, he's not going to step up because he cannot carry the team on his back. And he's making $60 million a year. And Jerry Jones paid him that because he views Dak Prescott as a top 5 quarterback. That's not the case. Dak Prescott is solid, but he's better off when he can hand the football off to someone like Ezekiel Elliott in his prime and the same to Tony Pollard. And he got exposed this previous season. They had one of the worst rushing games in the NFL, and they forced Dak Prescott to go out there and to be that first option on first, second, and third down, and it did not work out for you. He had 11 passing touchdowns to 8 interceptions before he tore his hamstring against the Atlanta Falcons. And that's another thing that I want to add into this conversation. He's 2-5 in the NFL playoffs. That isn't a good record for a quote unquote franchise quarterback. On top of that, he has an extensive injury history. Torn hamstring, had a finger injury a few years back. He broke his leg many years ago when they went against the New York Giants. That was just bad luck. But those injuries, they've happened. Dak Prescott hasn't been fully healthy every single season. His body is not dependable. The offensive line is a major problem right now because Zach Martin just retired. You have Robert Jones as your starting right guard and Terrence Steele as your starting right tackle. The right side of the offensive line, they need work. But the way to get the most out of Dak Prescott is to run this offense through a running back. And that's why Mike McCarthy deserved to be fired. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Coach Schottenheimer. He's been around the NFL since 1997 when he was assistant coach with the St. Louis Rams. And he's never been viewed as a head coach candidate until now because Jerry Jones, he loves him. He can boss him around. He can bully him around. But you look at Coach McCarthy, he got Kellen Moore fired. The same offensive coordinator that went to the Philadelphia Eagles and helped turn around Jalen Hurts' career. And you know the one thing that he did with the Philadelphia Eagles? He ran the football into the ground every single week with Saquon. We saw this with Dak Prescott. He was a younger coach at the time. There was a lot of passing plays, especially on third down. It's 3rd and 1. When it's 4th and 1, they're passing the football instead of running the football. And Mike McCarthy was not calling offensive plays at the time. So he goes to Jerry Jones. He asks Jerry Jones, can I call offensive plays? We're going to run the football more with me if we let Kellen Moore go. Say, let Kellen Moore go. And Jerry Jones thought highly of Kellen Moore at the time. Mike McCarthy lied to that man's face. They threw the football more with Dak Prescott than they did with Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was not the best offensive coordinator at the time, but he wasn't terrible. He was not the main reason to why the Dallas Cowboys came up short in pivotal regular season games and the same for the postseason. But one thing stood out to me when that report came out. Mike McCarthy had to go to Jerry Jones and get his permission to move off of Kellen Moore. When I look at Bill Belichick, he did not have to get permission from Robert Kraft to fire a coach. The same with Sean Payton when he was with the New Orleans Saints. The same with Sean Payton right now with the Denver Broncos. They let their coaches go out there. They let their coaches manage the team. They let them call plays. They let them be comfortable. Jerry Jones, a few years ago when Jason Garrett was still the head coach, Jason Garrett decided to punt the football on 4th and 2. Jerry Jones comes out and he said that he did not agree with that decision. He wanted the team to be more aggressive, go for it on 4th down. What do the Dallas Cowboys do the next week? They go for it on 4th down. And the same thing happened with Mike McCarthy. He wanted to see the Dallas Cowboys be more aggressive, go for 2. They were going for 2. They were being more aggressive on 4th down. Jerry Jones calls the shots. He's the owner. He's a general manager. He takes care of the entire team. With most owners in the NFL, they let the general managers go out there and work with the scouts. They let them work with the executives. They pick the right players, and they're running by the ownership. You look at Jerry Jones. He controls everything with the 53-man roster. He's in charge of who gets to stay. He's in charge of who he wants to move on from. That is not common with most owners in sports leagues. He has a huge grasp on the Dallas Cowboys, and he owns the team. He can do what he wants to do. But if you're going to continue to do things his way, you're not going to have that postseason success. We look at players, we say that they're washed up, and the same with coaches, they're behind their primes. This is not the same Jerry Jones from the 1990s that was being very aggressive. This is not the same Jerry Jones that went out there and brought in Deion Sanders many decades ago. They've gotten cheap in free agency, and they wait too long to pay their players. And you can say that's a Stephen Jones issue. Stephen Jones can only do so much. The only power that he had on Jerry Jones was the fact that he begged and he pleaded with his dad. And he said, please don't draft Johnny Manziel. We have to go with Zach Martin. Jerry Jones almost drafted Johnny Manziel over Zach Martin. Johnny Manziel was a huge bust in the NFL for the Cleveland Browns. But he even came out and said things would have been worse if he would have gotten to stay in Dallas. But they went with Zach Martin instead, and Stephen Jones was the reason for that. You got a Hall of Fame guard out of that deal, out of that first-round pick. Jerry Jones has lost his mind, dating back to 15 years ago. But the Dak Prescott contract is just touching the surface with bad decisions that he's made within the last 5 years. Another trade as of late was when they went out there and they made a trade to bring in Jonathan Mingo, one of the worst wide receivers that you can have in football. Jonathan Mingo was not a very good player with the Carolina Panthers. The Dallas Cowboys had heavy interest in drafting him many years ago, but the Carolina Panthers, they selected him. And he did little to nothing for the Carolina Panthers. So what does Jerry Jones do? He trades a 4th-round pick for Jonathan Mingo. And you look at Jonathan Mingo, his numbers with the Carolina Panthers and the Dallas Cowboys. He got to play with 2 different quarterbacks this year. 3 if you want to count the quarterback that came in at Cooper Rush when Dak Prescott went down. He has 17 catches for 167 receiving yards. He is 23 years old, but he can't catch consistently. He doesn't run routes explosive. He doesn't have explosive routes to run. He has a limited route tree in general. and he's not the fastest player to have on the field. On his best day, he's a below average wide receiver. And the reason why you brought him in is because you needed wide receiving help. You trade a 4th round pick to bring him in. The Chiefs go out there, they bring in DeAndre Hopkins, and they did not trade a 4th round pick to bring him in. And say what you want to say about DeAndre Hopkins, he's past his prime. He is still better than Jonathan Mingo. He would have added in veteranship with this organization, and you could have got him for cheaper. 4th round picks are valuable. Dak Prescott was a 4th round pick. You can find talent in the 4th round. You could draft the running back, especially in this year's draft class, in the 4th round. But you trade that pick to bring in Jonathan Mingo. Another bizarre trade. They went out there and they traded for Trey Lance. They traded a 4th round pick yet again to bring in a backup quarterback. Trey Lance was so bad. He had 5 interceptions in a single game in the preseason. He was a 3rd string quarterback with the Dallas Cowboys. They put Cooper Rush in over him. Even when Cooper Rush was having bad moments, they kept him in. That is how bad Trey Lance was. Trey Lance was so bad that he almost went to the CFL, the Canadian Football League, until he signed with the Los Angeles Chargers, and he's going to be their backup. Maybe their 3rd string. Depends on what happens this offseason and training camp. But that is how bad the trades have been with Jerry Jones. You traded for Trey Lance, another valuable 4th round pick, and the same with Jonathan Mingo. Just throwing those picks away. You signed Ezekiel Elliott to a major contract extension many years ago, but Ezekiel Elliott was a beast in his prime. You could have made the case that he was one of the best running backs in the NFL at the time. Him and Dak Prescott, they were a great duo. That's when we got to see Dak Prescott really shine. When he could work off a play action, hand the football off to Ezekiel Elliott, but you ran him into the ground. Because the shelf life with running backs in the NFL, they're pretty short compared to other positions. That's just how the position group is. So eventually you had to cut Ezekiel Elliott, which was the right decision to do. He goes over to the New England Patriots. You now have Tony Pollard. And they were splitting carries between Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. But you saw Tony Pollard was the better player, especially coming out of the backfield and giving you explosive plays. Instead of going out there and rewarding Tony Pollard with a contract extension, and I'm not the biggest fan of paying running backs, they let him walk to the Tennessee Titans. And they brought back Ezekiel Elliott. And they had Rico. Rico was your bell cow. Ezekiel Elliott would come in every now and then. Ezekiel Elliott was so bad with the Dallas Cowboys, they played him out of the rotations. That's what Mike McCarthy did. And he was very upset. He said that he wanted to be used more in goal line situations. The problem was this with Ezekiel Elliott. He regressed from even the time he played with the New England Patriots. He was so slow he couldn't come out the backfield. So linebackers would just catch him in the backfield. They'll just come off the edge and they'll just get him. He's a bowling ball still. But it takes some time for him to get out the backfield. But you knew that your rushing game was not going to be the same because you're going to bring in some brand new offensive linemen that were younger. And your running backs did not have the same explosive ability as Tony Pollard. So you went out there, you brought back Ezekiel Elliott just to sell more jerseys and get more money out of fans. That's what he did. And Ezekiel Elliott, he switched his jersey number. The sentimental value was still there, but a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans, they caught on to that and they said, you know what? This isn't the same Zeke. We remember his last season with the Cowboys. He'll only average 2 to 3 yards a carry. That's it. And that's on his best day. Against teams like the San Francisco 49ers, against the Green Bay Packers, he's not doing much. He's not going to be able to go out there and fully carry the team on his back like how he used to. And once again, you put Dak Prescott in a bad situation. And that's what obsessed me about the Cowboys, because Jerry Jones came out last offseason. He said, we're going all in. He went all in when he brought in Brandon Cooks. He brought in Stephon Gilmore. That was the year they went all in. That was the year for the Dallas Cowboys to take that step forward, but they did. Stephon Gilmore was a very good veteran corner. You look at Brandon Cooks, he was that deep threat that they were looking for so many years, because just the year before that, they had T.Y. Hilton late in the season. He even played a playoff game against San Francisco 49ers. You still had Michael Gallup on the roster with CeeDee Lamb. You still had a huge wide receiving problem. But you bring in Brandon Cooks, he had some solid moments. But just this previous season, knee surgery went wrong. He had an infection in his knee. That's why he went out there, and that's why you traded for Jonathan Mingo. You have CeeDee Lamb, very good wide receiver. He did miss the last few games dealing with a shoulder injury. But before that shoulder injury, 1,194 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns. And you also have Jake Ferguson, who is a very good tight end. Outside of those players, you don't have major wide receiving threats. We could talk about Jalen Tolbert. He's a wide receiver 3 at best. He can't consistently win those one-on-one battles on the outside. 610 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. And he's going to be up for a contract extension very soon. You look at Kevontae Turpin. Kevontae Turpin, I think he's a very good special team player. That hasn't translated over to being a very good wide receiver just yet. Hopefully with Schottenheimer, he can come in, he can give him the football in open space on jailbreak screens, on tunnel screens, end around plays, and we can see what he has. But just because you're a great special teams player doesn't mean you're going to be a great wide receiver. And with the NFL draft being a couple of days away, I want to say the Dallas Cowboys should go out there and trade up for a running back in Ashton Jeanty, because Ashton Jeanty would be the perfect player with the Dallas Cowboys in the backfield. But the problem is this: you have so many holes on this roster. You need another consistent wide receiver. You need to bring in another offensive lineman, because Terrence Steele is not a good right tackle. He hasn't been good since he tore his ACL going years back. Robert Jones, I don't think that he'll be a good consistent right guard. I like Cooper Beebe at the center position. There's a lot of upside there. Tyler Smith is a very good left guard. And Tyler Guyton, I think he's going to be a special player long term at the left tackle position. But you need to bring in some more offensive linemen on the right side to fully help out Dak Prescott. But Ashton Jeanty could really help the Dallas Cowboys out right now, because it would take the focal point off of Dak Prescott. This should be a run-first football team. Build this team like how the Detroit Lions built the team around Jared Goff. We saw Jared Goff with the Los Angeles Rams. He has some up and down moments. But what did Sean McVay do with him? They ran the football with Todd Gurley. Look at him now with the Detroit Lions. They run the football with Jahmyr Gibbs. They run the football with David Montgomery. That is what you should do. And I look at the Dallas Cowboys. You no longer have Rico, but you do have Javonte Williams, and you also have Miles Sanders. Those are not good perimeter running backs to have. Javonte Williams towards ACL. He's going to only average 3 to 4 yards a carry. He just averaged 3.7 yards a carry, and he was in a rotation with the Denver Broncos. Miles Sanders, he is just a system running back. He had a very good stint with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles have one of the best systems in the NFL for running backs. You have a dominant quarterback that can run the football in Jalen Hurts. You have a dominant offensive line. Just look at your division. It's a copycat league. That should be the blueprint. And I know it sounds crazy, paying Dak Prescott $60 million a year, and a lot of general managers and a lot of owners, they don't want to do that. But in this case, you have to. You have to make this a run-first football team, work off of play action. That is when Dak Prescott can fully excel. And when you run the football more, you can use time possession. That's what made the Dallas Cowboys so special early on with Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. If Ashton Jeanty falls to you, you take him. If he does it, don't panic. I want to say that they should trade up for him, but in actuality, they shouldn't. You should take a wide receiver in the first round. If Ashton Jeanty is not available, you can draft a running back in the second or third round. And they can be very good players for you, because this is a great running back class coming out of college. But this offense, they have a lot of holes. And especially with Schottenheimer calling plays and being the head coach, it's going to be very interesting to see if he can fully work out, because his track record in the NFL as an offensive coordinator is not the best. And he did not call offensive plays with the Dallas Cowboys. That was Coach Mike McCarthy. Your defense also needs a lot of work. Micah Parsons is a great player. Pay him right now. Jerry Jones wants to wait to training camp. He wants to wait before the season starts to go out there. He wants to pay his players then so he can catch the headlines. Just pay him as soon as possible, because he's going to break the bank, whether Jerry Jones likes it or not. And Jerry Jones has made this personal with Micah Parsons. He wants to meet with Micah Parsons. But Micah Parsons came out and he told him, I'll meet with you, but my agent has to be there. Jerry Jones does not want to meet with the agent. He wants to meet with Micah Parsons because he views him as family. I don't have a problem with owner viewing players as family. But let's just grow up here. Let's be mature. Meet with the agent. Let's get this thing done. That's what made the Patriots so special with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. They paid their players as soon as possible. And in certain situations, they didn't pay their players. They just traded them off for draft picks, and they drafted very well. But you have Micah Parsons. You're bringing back Dante Fowler. Dante Fowler is a rotational pass rusher. He's a system pass rusher. Not to say that he's a bad player. He just had 10.5 sacks last season. And what I mean that he's a rotational player, he's a system player. He's better off when he could play alongside a dominant edge rusher in Micah Parsons. He's not going to go out there and be your main sack leader. He's not going to be a top defensive player in the NFL on a weekly basis. But when he gets red hot, he's red hot. So to have him on the opposite side of Micah Parsons, I like that. You have Marshawn Kneeland. He's coming back. He hurt his knee against the Steelers last year. He missed the rest of the season. There's a lot of upside there with him. Sam Williams, if he can stay healthy, he could be a very good rotational pass rusher. But they need run stoppers. Osa Odigizua, very good run stopper in his own right. But Maji Smith, I'm still waiting on Maji Smith to be that top pick that they drafted many years ago. When they first drafted Maji Smith in the first round, he was this dominant defensive tackle coming out of Michigan. They wanted him to lose 25 pounds. He did. He doesn't have the same power and the same effectiveness on the field that he had at Michigan. The last 5 games of the regular season, he did stand out as a very good run stopper. But they need him to push the pocket and to stop the run. He's playing in the middle of that defense alongside Micah Parsons and Osa Odigizua. So he needs to go out there and he needs to perform and he needs to step up. The linebacking room, they need to bring in some more linebackers. I look at Kenneth Murray. He's solid, but he hasn't carved out a role of being a consistent starter anywhere in football just yet. DeMarvion Overshown, very good player. He popped off the screen last year, but he's coming off a knee injury, and he suffered that injury late in the season. He may miss some games for the upcoming year. The secondary, on paper, you have Trayvon Diggs, you have Deron Bland, 2 very good cornerbacks. The thing is this with Trayvon Diggs, he tore his ACL a year ago, and he missed that game against the Arizona Cardinals. He tore his ACL in practice. When I look at Trayvon Diggs, he's a very good cornerback, but he doesn't have the same speed that he once had. And he was playing with a torn calf for majority of the previous year. Those injuries are starting to add up, and he's on a big contract right now. And Deron Bland was recovering from a foot injury. If both of those players can stay fully healthy, that's a very good secondary that could come out of nowhere and intercept the football and take it to the house. That's what Deron Bland did 2 years ago with the Dallas Cowboys. I like Malik Hooker. I like Donovan Wilson. So they have talent, but they're just not talented enough in this division. Because the Washington Commanders, say what you want to say about them, they're a top team in this division now. The Philadelphia Eagles, currently, they're the best team in the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys, you can make the case that they're the 3rd best team in this division, and they have the highest paid player per year and on his contract and guarantees in this division in Dak Prescott. That's not a good situation. And I blame all of this on Jerry Jones. From going out there and hiring the wrong coaches, not letting the coaches do their jobs, for always meddling in business over and over again. It's not going to work unless he changes his ways, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. And that's the unfortunate part about this, because they have talented players. But it's just mind-boggling to me to see the Washington Commanders, they go out there to the NFC Championship game and they change their culture. The Philadelphia Eagles, they're in a bad spot a few years ago. If you guys remember, they had Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz. Ownership came out and he said, I'm sick of both of you. You both can go. They got rid of Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson. And you had Jalen Hurts become the starting quarterback. And if you are a Cowboys fan, you may say, hey, we have Joe Milton. Maybe he can develop into a quarterback long term. The same thing they said about Trey Lance. And they had Cooper Rush being the backup quarterback. Now, Joe Milton has more upside. He's bigger. He's stronger. He's more athletic than Trey Lance. We'll see if one day he could be that franchise quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. But right now, you have Dak Prescott, who has a 2-5 playoff record. It's time to switch that around. Be a more physical football team. Bring in some more offensive linemen. Bring in another wide receiver. If Ashton Jeanty is not there, I would go with Matthew Golden out of Texas, because you can move him around. He has more explosive routes to his game than Ted McMillan, or you can go with Ted McMillan. But regardless, this is not a pretty picture for the Dallas Cowboys. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about this organization? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.